Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why some people break every barrier, rise from nothing, and create a life of extraordinary success, while others, just as talented, just as capable, stay stuck living an average, forgettable existence? It's not luck, it's not intelligence, it's not even timing, it's one thing: obsession. See, the world doesn't reward the almost committed. The world doesn't hand greatness to the ones who kind of want it. The truth is, average is crowded, it's safe, it's comfortable, it's where the majority hide. But if you want to build something extraordinary, if you want to live a life that inspires, a life that matters, then you've got to make a decision: be obsessive or be average. There is no middle ground. And I know right now some of you feel that fire inside. You've got dreams you haven't told anyone about. You've got visions of a life that pulls at you in the middle of the night. Here's the reality: unless you fuel that fire with obsession, it will die out. Dreams without obsession fade into regrets. Tonight, I'm going to show you why obsession is not a weakness. It's your ultimate power. I'm going to break down how the greats used it, how you can harness it, and why the difference between living average and achieving massive success comes down to the choice you make in this moment. So if you're tired of playing small, if you're ready to stop surviving and start dominating, lean in. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear is not just motivation. It's a blueprint. And if you let it sink in, it can change the entire direction of your life. You know what separates the obsessed from the average? It's not that they're smarter, it's not that they've got better connections, and it's not that life handed them something special. It's that obsession forces them into absolute clarity. When you're obsessed, you don't wake up wondering what you're supposed to do today. You don't question what your goals are, you don't bounce from one idea to the next. You wake up with a fire in your gut and a direction so clear that nothing can shake you. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. Most people fail because they live in this fog of indecision. They say, I want success, but they can't even define what success looks like for them. They say, I want more money, but they've got no target. They say, I want to be happy, but they haven't figured out what happiness actually means to them. When you don't know exactly what you want, life will push you around. You'll end up chasing every shiny object, wasting years of your life trying to figure out who you are, while the obsessed already know and are sprinting full speed toward it. You become obsessed, clarity becomes your best friend. It sharpens your vision like a laser. You start to see exactly where you're going, and just as importantly, you see what doesn't belong in your path. It's like flipping a switch inside of you. Suddenly you're not distracted anymore. You're not living for everyone else's approval. You're not stuck in the noise. You're not scattered in 100 directions. You've got one path, one mission, obsession, and that becomes the compass for every decision you make. Think about it. Have you ever been so in love with something, so locked in, that everything else faded away? Maybe it was a project, a sport, a person, an idea. In that state, you didn't need someone to tell you to work harder. You didn't need a push. You were pulled almost magnetically by the sheer power of your obsession. That's clarity. That's the level of focus average people never tap into because they never commit deeply enough to find it. Average people dabble. They want a little of this, a little of that. They want to be comfortable. They want to play it safe. But they also secretly want greatness. The problem is you can't have both. You can't be comfortable obsessed. You can't chase 100 things and expect to master any of them. Obsession strips all of that confusion away. It forces you to choose. It forces you to say, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is where I'm going. Everything else is noise. And here's the truth: obsession isn't something you stumble into. It's something you decide. You decide that average isn't good enough. You decide that being unclear, being uncertain, being kind of committed isn't who you are anymore. You decide to lock in on the life you were born to live. The second you make that choice, your vision becomes clear. And once it's clear, you don't waste time on the nonsense that eats away at average people. You've got to understand clarity is power. Without it, you hesitate, you stall, you procrastinate. With it, you move fast, you take risks, you trust yourself. You stop living in fear of making mistakes. Obsession makes you crystal clear on why you're here and what you're building. And when that clarity hits, you can't go back to drifting. You can't go back to the fog. Every extraordinary achiever you've ever admired had this clarity. Look at the athletes who dominate their sport. They're not confused about their purpose. Look at the entrepreneurs who build billion-dollar empires. They're not dabbling. Look at the artists who leave a mark on history. They're not second-guessing their mission. They are obsessed, and that obsession gives them a level of clarity the average person will never experience. So let me ask you, what's your obsession? What are you kind of like? Not what sounds nice if it works out. I'm asking you, what's the thing you can't stop thinking about? The thing that sets your soul on fire, the thing that keeps pulling you back no matter how many times you try to walk away. That's where your clarity lies. And until you're willing to admit it, own it, and chase it with everything you've got, you'll always be stuck in the gray zone of average. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but what if I get obsessed with the wrong thing? What if I fail? Let me give you the truth. There is no wrong obsession. Failure doesn't mean you chose the wrong path. It means you're in the process of refining your path. Failure isn't a dead end. It's a detour. It's information. The only wrong move is never committing in the first place. The only way you truly lose is by living unclear, unfocused, and average. When you choose obsession, you'll find out quickly what matters and what doesn't. You'll cut out the distractions. You'll eliminate the dead weight. People will fall away. Opportunities will shift. And suddenly your life won't feel scattered anymore. It'll feel aligned. That's the gift of obsession, clarity. So stop living like you've got forever to figure it out. Stop telling yourself you're still searching. Clarity doesn't come from waiting. It doesn't come from overthinking. It doesn't come from hoping the perfect moment arrives. It comes from choosing to be obsessed right now, something bigger than yourself with something worth fighting for. And I promise you this, once you taste that kind of clarity, you'll never settle for average again. Because when you're obsessed, life is no longer a question mark. It's an exclamation point. Clarity without action is just a daydream. You can know exactly what you want. You can visualize it. You can write it on vision boards. You can talk about it until your voice goes hoarse. But if you don't get up and act, none of it matters. Obsession isn't proven by what you think about. It's proven by what you do every single day. People love to tell me how badly they want success, how much they desire change, how deeply they crave a different life. Then I look at their actions, and their actions scream the opposite. Your actions always tell the truth about your level of obsession. If you're obsessed, you don't wait for the perfect mood or the perfect circumstances. You don't say, I'll do it when I feel motivated. Motivation is a spark, and sparks die out in seconds. What drives massive success isn't a spark. It's the relentless fire of action. Obsession pushes you to move forward when you're tired. You're uninspired when you don't feel like it, when the world is against you. Action becomes your language, your habit, your way of life. The average person will take action only when it's easy, when it's comfortable. It doesn't cost them too much. They'll work hard for a week, maybe a month, but the moment it gets painful, the moment the payoff doesn't come fast enough, they quit. That's why average people stay average. The obsessed, on the other hand, operate like that. For them, action is oxygen. It's not something they do when it's convenient. It's something they must do because the idea of standing still suffocates them. Let me tell you something important. Your life changes the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. The moment you stop saying, I'll start tomorrow, I'll try next week, I'll do it when the timing is right. No, obsession doesn't negotiate. Obsession says, no, today. Excuses, no delays. That's why the obsessed succeed. They eliminate the debate in their own mind. They've decided, they've committed, and then they act every single day until their vision becomes reality. Think about this. Have you ever noticed that once you start moving, once you take that first step, everything changes, momentum kicks in. One step leads to another. One small victory fuels the next. Action builds energy while inaction drains it. The secret is you don't wait for momentum to magically appear. You create it through action, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. That's when it matters most. Most people waste years waiting for inspiration to strike, waiting to feel ready, waiting for the conditions to line up perfectly. But here's the truth. If you're waiting to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Ready is a myth. It will never be a perfect time. There will never be zero risk. There will never be absolute certainty. Obsession doesn't need certainty. Obsession creates certainty by moving, by doing, by executing. When you're obsessed, action becomes non-negotiable. You train when you're tired. You study when others are asleep. You build when no one is watching. You go again and again and again until what was once impossible becomes your new normal. That's how champions are made. That's how legacies are built. And let me be real with you. Action is not always glamorous. Sometimes it's repetitive. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's painful. But that's the point. That's where obsession separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Anyone can show up when it's fun. Anyone can push hard when it feels exciting, but only the obsessed show up when it's painful, when it's lonely, when there's no applause. The results still haven't arrived. That's when action matters the most. You want to know the truth about people who achieve massive success. They've learned how to fall in love with the grind. They've trained themselves to embrace the work no one else is willing to do. They take the same steps over and over, sharpening, improving, refining, until excellence isn't an act anymore, it's a habit. Obsession turns action into discipline. Discipline turns discipline into dominance. There's another thing action does. It kills fear. Fear thrives in your mind when you're still, when you're stuck in overthinking, when you're paralyzed by all the what ifs. But the moment you act, fear begins to shrink. Action gives you evidence that you're moving forward. Even if you make mistakes, even if you stumble, you're building momentum. And momentum destroys fear faster than anything else. People often ask if I fail, and I tell them, you will. But failure isn't the end. Failure is feedback. Failure is progress. Failure means you're in the arena, you're moving, you're growing. The average avoid failure by avoiding action. The obsessed embrace failure by taking massive action. That's the difference. And I want you to think about this. What if every single day you chose to act like your dream depended on it? If you treated every morning like an opportunity that would never come again, what if you stopped waiting for someone to push you and decided you were enough to push yourself? Do you realize how quickly your life would transform if you made action a lifestyle instead of a phase? That's the beauty of obsession. It doesn't let you sit still. It doesn't let you get comfortable. It drives you to act even when you don't see the payoff yet, because deep down, you know the payoff will come if you just keep moving. Obsession demands that you pay the price now so you can live the reward later. And here's the best part. You act relentlessly. When you stack action on top of action, it compounds. What starts as small, almost invisible progress eventually explodes into massive results. That's why most people underestimate the obsessed. They don't see the thousands of unseen actions, the hours behind closed doors, the sacrifices made in silence. But one day, the results show up so loud the world can't ignore them. That's the reward of relentless action. So I'm asking you right now, are you ready to stop living like you have unlimited tomorrows? Are you ready to stop waiting, stop negotiating, stop hesitating? Because your obsession will only be as powerful as the action you attach to it. Every second you delay is another second wasted in the landed average. Every step you take is another brick laid in the foundation of massive success. The choice is simple. You can keep talking, dreaming, planning, wishing, or you can decide today that action is your only option. Because obsession without action is fantasy. Obsession with relentless action creates destiny. Obsession is a powerful force, but let me be clear, it can either make you or break you. Energy of obsession doesn't disappear, it has to go somewhere. And if you don't channel it with precision, it will scatter, it will dilute, it will pull you into 1,000 directions that keep you busy but not effective. That's the trap most people fall into. They confuse activity with achievement. They confuse being busy with being productive. They scatter their obsession across distractions. And at the end of the day, they're exhausted but not any closer to their dreams. Average people live like that. They chase every opportunity. They dabble in a dozen different things. They get excited one week about this and the next week about that. They're constantly shifting gears, but they never go deep enough to create mastery. And the truth is, dabblers don't win. Dabblers don't dominate. Dabblers don't build legacies. They live in a cycle of starting and stopping, always moving, never arriving. When you're truly obsessed, you have to learn how to take that fire and focus it like a laser. You have to make the decision to channel your energy into mastery, not distraction. Mastery means you pick the thing that matters most. You go all in, you don't dabble, you don't test the waters, you don't half commit. You immerse yourself so deeply that your craft becomes a part of who you are. You don't just practice it, you breathe it, you study it, you refine it, you elevate it until people can't even recognize the version of you who started. And here's what people don't tell you about mastery. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's not glamorous most of the time. You're doing the same thing again and again, searching for tiny improvements, refining small details, pushing yourself to get 1% better every single day. That's what separates the obsessed from the average. Average people get bored and move on. Obsessed people fall in love with the repetition because they understand it's the gateway to greatness. Think about athletes at the top of their game. They don't practice flashy tricks all day. They drill the fundamentals over and over until they can do them in their sleep. Musicians who master their instruments don't just play new songs every day. They repeat scales, they refine technique. They rehearse until their fingers bleed. Entrepreneurs who dominate don't jump on every new trend. They pick their lane, they master their market, and they execute relentlessly until they own it. Mastery requires you to say no more than you say yes. And that's hard for most people. Most people want to do everything, try everything, be everywhere. But the obsessed understand that every yes to distraction is a no. Mastery. Every time you spread yourself thin, you weaken your power. Every time you chase 10 different things, you rob yourself of the ability to become world-class at the one thing that matters most. And here's another truth. Mastery takes time. You can't microwave it. You can't skip the process. We live in a world that worships instant gratification. Mastery doesn't happen instantly. It's earned in the dark, behind the scenes, through years of deliberate practice. And that's why so few people ever taste it, because they don't stick around long enough to see the reward. They get distracted. They want shortcuts. They want fast results. But the obsessed, the ones who channel their obsession into mastery, they're willing to grind through the process because they know the payoff is worth it. The beautiful thing about mastery is that once you start to reach it, life begins to bend in your direction. Opportunities open up that would never show up for someone average. People seek you out. Doors swing wide open because you've become rare. In a world drowning in mediocrity, rarity is power. Rarity is influence. Rarity is wealth. But you can't become rare if you're scattered. You can't stand out if you blend in with everyone chasing distractions. That's why you've got to take your obsession and aim it. Aim it at the thing that sets your soul on fire. Aim it at the craft that can carry your vision. Aim it at the skill that can separate you from the masses. Because the truth is, obsession without direction is just noise. Obsession with direction is symphony. And let me be real with you. It's going to test you. You're going to want to quit. You're going to feel the pull of other things calling your name. You'll look around and see people chasing quick wins, and it will be tempting. But mastery is not for the faint of heart. It's for those willing to be obsessed enough to stay the course, to say no to the noise, to sacrifice short-term thrills for long-term greatness. I want you to picture this. Imagine you've been pouring your obsession into something for years. You've failed, you've stumbled, you've repeated the same process thousands of times. Then one day, you break through. Suddenly, the skill that used to feel impossible is second nature. The results that once seemed unreachable are in your hands. People look at you and say, you're gifted, You're lucky. You're talented. But deep down, you know the truth. You know it wasn't luck. It was obsession channeled into mastery. It was the hours no one saw, the choices no one applauded, the sacrifices no one will ever understand. That's the real price of mastery, and that's why it pays so high. So don't let your obsession scatter you. Don't let it get hijacked by distractions, trends, or the opinions of people who don't even live the life you want. Take that fire and point it. Focus it. Drive it into one thing until you become unstoppable. Because the world doesn't remember the people who dabbled. They remember the people who mastered. And the truth is you already have that fire inside you. You already have that obsession. The question is, will you waste it on distraction or will you channel it into mastery? Because obsession without mastery is chaos, but obsession channeled into mastery creates greatness. Most people see failure as the end of the road. They hit a wall, something doesn't work out, they lose money, they get rejected, and suddenly their story is over. They start saying things like, maybe it wasn't meant for me. Maybe I should play it safe. Maybe I should lower my expectations. And that's why they stay average, because average people interpret failure as proof they should stop. The obsessed, they see failure completely differently. For them, failure isn't the end, it's information. It's a lesson, it's fuel. When you're obsessed, you don't crumble under rejection. You don't let a setback define you. You don't walk away from the dream because the path hurt more than you thought it would. Failure doesn't paralyze you, it sharpens you. It teaches you where to adjust, what to refine, how to grow, and that's the difference. The average say, I failed, so I'm done. The obsessed say, I failed, so I'm learning. Let's go again. You've got to understand something. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a part of success. It's the soil success grows in. Every single person who's ever achieved anything extraordinary has walked through fields of failure. Athletes who dominate their sport have lost thousands of games, missed thousands of shots, been told thousands of times they weren't good enough. Entrepreneurs who build empires have endured bankruptcies, lawsuits, broken partnerships, nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how they'll survive. Artists who inspired generations have faced rejection, criticism, silence when no one believed in their work. The only thing that separates them from the average is this: they didn't stop. They redefined what failure meant to them. They stopped seeing it as a signal to quit and started seeing it as a stepping stone to mastery. They became obsessed with learning from it. And because they kept going, what once looked like failure eventually became the foundation of their greatness. Think about it. When you were a child learning to walk, you fell hundreds of times. You stumbled, you collapsed, you face planted. But no one ever looked at you and said, walking isn't for you. You should probably crawl for the rest of your life. No, you fell, you got back up, and you learned. That's how every single skill you've ever developed came into being. Through repeated failure that taught you how to improve. Somewhere along the line, though, people convince themselves that falling down as an adult means they're not cut out for it. That's nonsense. Falling down doesn't disqualify you, it qualifies you. When you're obsessed, you stop fearing failure. You stop running from it. You start chasing it because you know every failure brings you closer to clarity, to strength, to mastery. The obsessed understand that if you're not failing, you're not really trying. If you're not falling, you're not stretching far enough. If you're not making mistakes, you're not in the arena. You're on the sidelines watching others live the life you wish you had. And let's be honest, failure hurts. It does. It stings when you pour your heart into something and it collapses. It's painful when people laugh, criticize, or doubt you. But pain is not a punishment. It's a teacher. Pain stretches you. Pain strengthens you. Pain builds the kind of resilience that comfort never could. And if you want to create massive success, you'd better fall in love with pain because pain is the price of growth. Here's the thing. Most people will do anything to avoid pain. They'll avoid risk, they'll avoid rejection, they'll avoid the possibility of failing, and in doing so, they also avoid the possibility of greatness. The obsessed know that the cost of avoiding failure is far greater than the cost of experiencing it. The cost of avoiding failure is regret, and regret is the heaviest weight you'll ever carry. So you've got to make a choice. Do you want to avoid failure in life safely, quietly, forgettably, or do you want to embrace failure, redefine it, and let it sculpt you into someone unstoppable? Because those are your only two options. People who achieve massive success have trained their minds to look at failure differently. When something doesn't work out, they don't say, why me? They ask, what's next? What can I learn? How can I adapt? They refuse to let one chapter define the whole book. They write again, they build again, they swing again. That's the mindset of obsession. It doesn't let failure close the door. It uses failure to kick the door wide open. You know what happens when you redefine failure? Fear starts to disappear because fear is always tied to the idea that failing means the end. But if failing is just part of the process, then what's left to fear? If failure is just another step toward greatness, then fear loses its grip. That's why obsessed people seem fearless. They're not immune to failure. They've just removed its power to stop them. Every breakthrough in history is built on a pile of failures. Every invention, every discovery, every masterpiece is surrounded by attempts that didn't work. But no one remembers the failures. No one looks back and counts how many times you fell. They only remember that you kept going until you succeeded. That's the legacy of obsession. It makes you relentless in the face of failure. So don't ask for a life without failure. Don't ask for the easy road. Ask for the strength to keep moving, the courage to learn, the resilience to rise again. Because if you're obsessed, you're going to fail a lot. But those failures will become the raw material of your success story. And when the day comes that you finally break through, no one will see the pain, the rejection, the nights you thought you couldn't go on. They'll only see the results. They'll only see the success. And they'll call you lucky, gifted, blessed. But you'll know the truth. You were obsessed enough to redefine failure, and that's why you made it. Because the obsessed don't fear failure. They turn failure into fuel. No matter how strong you are, no matter how obsessed you are, no matter how much action you're willing to take, your environment will either multiply that drive or it will slowly suffocate it. The truth is you don't rise alone, you rise with the energy you allow around you. That's why some people never break through. They're trying to build a fire in the middle of a rainstorm. You've probably heard the saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's not just a cute phrase, it's reality. If you spend your days around people who are negative, who complain, who make excuses, who settle for average, then guess what? That energy seeps into you whether you realize it or not. Their doubts become your doubts. Their limitations become your limitations. Their small thinking becomes the ceiling on your life. You cannot afford that if you're serious about massive success. When you're obsessed, you've got to be ruthless about your environment. You've got to ask yourself, does this person fuel me or do they drain me? Does this conversation push me closer to my vision or does it distract me from it? Does this environment elevate me? Does it pull me down into comfort and mediocrity? Because the wrong environment can kill your obsession faster than failure ever could. Think about it. You can be on fire with your vision. You can be ready to take on the world. If you're surrounded by people who laugh at your goals, who roll their eyes, who constantly tell you to be realistic, eventually you start shrinking. You start questioning yourself. And slowly, without even realizing it, your obsession dies. Not because you weren't capable, but because you allowed friction to smother your flame. But when you put yourself around people who are hungry, who are obsessed, who are chasing their own dreams with everything they've got, suddenly your fire grows. Their energy becomes fuel for you. Their wins inspire you. Their standards raise yours. You start to realize that your limits weren't real. They were just a reflection of the limits of the people you were listening to. This is why proximity is power. Get close to people who are living at the level you want to reach. Surround yourself with those who refuse to settle, who challenge you, who call you out when you're slipping, who remind you of who you really are when you forget. If you do that, you'll grow without even trying because their mindset, their habits, their energy will rub off on you. And I'll tell you something else. You can't be afraid to let people go. That's one of the hardest lessons for people to learn. Everyone can come with you to the next level. Not everyone is meant to. And sometimes the people holding you back are the ones closest to you. Friends, family, people you love. But if they're constantly feeding you doubt, if they're constantly keeping you in comfort, if they're constantly pulling you back to average, then you've got to make a decision. Do I stay loyal to comfort or do I stay loyal to my vision? Because you can't serve both. And listen, letting go doesn't always mean cutting someone out of your life completely. Sometimes it just means shifting the level of access they have to you. You can still love them. You can still care about them. You can't allow their friction to slow your obsession. You've got to protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Your dreams depend on it. Your legacy depends on it. Now, it's not just about removing the wrong people. It's also about intentionally seeking out the right ones. You've got to go where the energy is different. Attend events, join groups, find mentors, read the books. Listen to the voices that expand your vision instead of shrinking it. Feed your mind every single day with fuel. Surround yourself not only with people, but with ideas that stretch you, challenge you, demand more of you. Because here's what happens. You start to see differently. When you're surrounded by winners, problems don't look like obstacles anymore. They look like puzzles to solve. Setbacks don't feel like the end. They feel like the next step. Big goals don't seem crazy anymore. They seem normal. Why? Because you've changed your environment. When your environment changes, your standards change. And when your standards change, your life changes. You cannot create an extraordinary life in an ordinary environment. You can't maintain obsession in an environment built for average. You've got to build an ecosystem around yourself that fuels you daily. That means choosing what you watch, what you listen to, what you talk about, who you let into your space. Every piece of input is either fueling you or draining you. Every moment you're either feeding your fire or smothering it. So ask yourself right now, what's fueling you? Who's fueling you? And what friction do you need to remove? Because if you're serious about massive success, you don't have the luxury of being careless with your environment. You've got to treat it like sacred ground. I promise you this, the moment you align yourself with people, places, and ideas that multiply your obsession, instead of diminishing it, everything accelerates. Your confidence grows, your focus sharpens, your progress multiplies. You start moving at a speed you didn't even know you had inside you. It's not because you suddenly became stronger. It's because you tapped into the power of fuel instead of fighting the drag of friction. At the end of the day, your environment will either feed your obsession or it will kill it. The choice is yours. Because if you surround yourself with fuel, your fire becomes unstoppable. One day your time will run out. That's not meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Because the truth is, none of us get forever. We get a window, short window of opportunity where we can create something meaningful, something lasting, something that outlives us. And in that window, you're either gonna live obsessed or you're gonna live average. Understand this, average doesn't leave a mark. Average doesn't get remembered. Average doesn't inspire anyone, not even you. When you live obsessed, you live with intensity. You live with urgency. You live with the awareness that every day is a chance to build something that matters. The obsessed don't coast through life hoping they'll be remembered. They demand it from themselves. They make choices today that will echo decades from now. They don't think in terms of days or weeks. They think in terms of legacy. Legacy is not about money, cars, houses, or trophies. Legacy is about impact. It's about the lives you touch, the example you set, the standard you leave behind for others to rise to. Legacy is what people say about you when you're gone, and more importantly, how they live because you live. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by obsession. Average, on the other hand, leaves nothing but regret. Regret of chances not taken, dreams not pursued, potential never realized, regret of knowing you had more inside you, but you chose comfort over courage, distraction over focus, safety over passion. Regret is brutal because it's permanent. You can recover from failure. You can recover from rejection, but you can't recover from a life unlived. Obsession protects you from that fate. When you're obsessed, you don't settle. You don't waste years waiting for the right time. You don't spend your life in some a day. You step into the arena now. You play full out. You make mistakes. You stumble, you get bruised, but you live fully. And when the day comes that you look back, be haunted by what if. You'll smile knowing you gave everything. That's the difference. People often say, but isn't obsession dangerous? Doesn't it make you unbalanced? And my answer is, isn't mediocrity dangerous? Isn't wasting your life dangerous? Isn't lying on your deathbed wishing you had another shot the most dangerous thing of all? Obsession isn't dangerous. Regret is. And if you think obsession costs too much, wait until you see the bill for average. The truth is, most people don't even realize how much they're trading away when they choose average. Every time you compromise your dream for comfort, you're making a withdrawal from your legacy. Every time you silence your passion to fit in, you're subtracting from the story you'll leave behind. Every time you settle for less than what you know you're capable of, you're writing regret into your future. But when you choose obsession, every sacrifice becomes an investment. Every late night, every early morning, every moment of discomfort, it all stacks up into something permanent. You're not just working for yourself anymore. You're building a blueprint for others to follow. You're proving to everyone who's watching, your family, your friends, your kids, your community, that greatness is possible if you're willing to go all in. That's legacy. And here's the beautiful thing. Legacy doesn't wait until you're gone. It starts now. The way you live today is already shaping the story people tell about you. When they see your discipline, when they feel your energy, when they watch you chase something bigger than yourself, you're already impacting them. You're already inspiring them. That ripple effect spreads further than you'll ever realize. Think about it. Maybe someone will never remember your name, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Maybe they'll never know your full story, but they'll be moved by your example. Maybe years from now, someone will take a bold step in their own life because they saw you refuse to settle in yours. That's the hidden power of obsession. It multiplies beyond you. It leaves a trail for others to follow. But average leaves no trail. Average is forgotten. Average is the quiet sigh in the dark of night, the whisper of, I could have been more. And no one dreams of living that way. Deep down, every single person in this room has something inside them that craves to matter, to contribute, to leave a mark. But that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by obsession. So you've got to ask yourself, what story do you want to leave behind? People speak about you. What do you want them to say? Do you want them to say you played it safe? You were comfortable. You were just fine. Or do you want them to say you were relentless? You were passionate. You were on fire. You demanded the best from yourself and inspired everyone around you to do the same. Because here's the truth. You're writing your legacy every day. With every choice you make, every action you take, every risk you embrace or avoid, you're building the story that will outlive you. And the story of obsession will always be greater than the story of average. When your time comes, and it will come, you won't care about the opinions of people who doubted you. Care about the critics, the setbacks, the failures. You'll care about one thing. Did you go all in? Did you live obsessed? Or did you live average? Did you give everything you had, or did you hold back? That answer will decide whether you leave a legacy or a lifetime of regret, because obsession leaves a mark that can't